Good morning and welcome. Just recording this quick little video about Dreadnought Resources, ticker code DRE, D for dog, R for Roger, E for Echo. Just in relation to a couple of requests from a few members from our ASX Traders United Facebook page. And yeah, just thought that there've been a few requests basically saying, well, what are your thoughts in relation to this particular stock? And well, there's been a sudden rise, as you can see from this particular chart here, on the 31st of August 2023. And I'm recording this today on the 8th of September, just before the market opened on the Friday. And this particular rise on the 31st of August was quite sudden. And as you can see right at the top of the screen, it was a 41% increase in the stock price in that particular day. And that's enough to inspire a lot of interest from a lot of people, as you can obviously see. It's worthy of having a bit of a discussion about in terms of what's actually happened with this stock over the last few months, really. For those who are not particularly familiar with the way a chart actually works, I'll go through that very, very briefly. But this is basically a stock chart overall. We've got green bars, we've got red bars. Whenever it's a green bar, obviously the actual share price has started lower, and you can see that from the particular with a big green candle there. It's started lower in the day and closed higher in the day at the end of the day. For those who actually aren't familiar with the red bars, it's opened up higher in the day and then closed lower in the day. And in this particular day here, it opened up low in the day, and you can see at the top of the actual screen, it opened up at 4.8 cents in the day, closed at 5.8 cents in the day. It actually got as high as 6.9 cents in the day. And that's a really, really pertinent point that I'll actually be really discussing later in this video. And it really, really is quite important, that particular point overall. These other bars down below are actually the volume aspects of the chart. And that is very, very important, especially in relation to that particular day. And we'll also discuss that a little bit further on as we go through this particular video as well. There's a couple of other indicators that I've got here on this chart as well. For those who actually are listening and watching the weekly videos that I actually do post on YouTube here as well, you'll actually be quite familiar with these particular indicators. The DMI, it's a universal indicator in terms of momentum, as well as the RSI, which is relative strength indicator as well. So these are actually very, very important indicators as well too. Go into those a little bit more in detail in relation to this particular stock as well as we go through. Okay, just clear my throat a little bit there for a tick. Now, I'll actually personally disclose my own aspects in relation to Dreadnought Resources. I had actually been involved in Dreadnought earlier in the year. I had actually purchased on the 15th of May earlier in the year, and I'll highlight whereabouts I was actually involved. There was actually an indication in my own trading trading system at that particular point. I had actually observed a signal, was an increase in RSI at that particular point in time. So there was actually an increase. You can just see it down below. It was right at the low point in terms of the RSI at that stage. There was a bit of a tick up in the RSI, and that's where I did have an indication to get involved in this particular trade at that stage. You can see the share price did actually increase over that point in time, so I was involved at that point, made a small profit at that stage in there overall, but overall at that stage really wasn't doing all that much at that point, and it lost momentum at that stage, and I cleared out at that point in terms of that trade as it actually bumped up and hit its head on that 30-week moving average. So that for me, in terms of my particular trading system, that was enough for me at that stage. Similar signal also had occurred on the 30th of June overall in terms of RSI tick up, but it really hadn't done too much there as the RSI basically dropped out pretty quickly after that, and I basically closed out for a small loss at that particular stage there. So that has been basically the involvement of myself in terms of dreadnought overall there. Ever since then, just taking a look at this particular chart overall at this particular stage, there has been this a bit of an increase here at that stage there, but ever since then, look at this decline that's occurred between July and September before this announcement that actually occurred on this particular day on the 31st of August. This gradual decline that has occurred, and that's concerning because the mere fact is it's really, really declined and it's gone past the prior low. So it really has continually declined. And look, sure, this has been fantastic. This price rise here is absolutely brilliant. Going up 41% in a day, really, really fantastic overall there. But one thing I want you to really, really pay attention to is exactly where the high of that day has gone. And the high of that day is 6.9 cents. Look across. It's hit exactly that high point right there in terms of this area from the 17th of July. So it formed a high right up here and it's hit it to the cent. And then bang, it's come straight back down. Shortly, we're going to go deeply into exactly what happened in this particular day on the 31st of August. Another area of concern as well is what's happened since. What's happened since the 31st of August is it's actually gone up to this particular point here, which also correlates, interestingly enough, to another high point, which is actually formed on the 5th of July, which is the 6.2 cent area. Now, it didn't quite reach the 6.2 cents on this day here, for 6.1 cents. Close enough, though. But it's gone up here, gone up, testing that area as well, and it's failing that area here too. So it looks as though we've got two major resistance points, 6.9 cents up here, as well as 6.2 cents here. Now, the 6.2 cents area, I really want you to be able to keep in mind as we're discussing the internals of this day here on the 31st of August, because this is really, really important. And another thing I want you to really pay attention to as well is the volume on this day of the 31st of August. Now, the volume, cast your eyes on the top left-hand side of the screen, the volume of this day of the 31st of August is 104 million. Now, that's the number of shares that have been traded in that one day. Now, looking down at the bottom, all these bars here, ever since this particular bar or this particular screen now is looking back to around about February, because you've got March there, that's February here. The biggest bar is about here. That was a big green candle there, 13th of April. Biggest bar there, 35 million shares in that particular day. That was a sudden rise of 16% there on that particular day, going from 6.7 cents up to 8 cents. So 35 million shares traded in that particular day. That's the highest amount of shares that have been traded in any one day over the past 6 or so months. In this particular day, 100 million shares. Now, let's delve into this particular day here, keeping in mind the 6.9 cent barrier and the 6.2 cent barrier, as well as the 100 million shares that have been traded. Okay, so I'll need to just skip out of, I need to skip out of this for a tick in terms of the full screen. Let's go to the 3-minute chart and we'll skip back to the 31st of August. And I'll just drag that across a little bit there so we can see that. Now we can go back into full screen again. Okay, so now casting your eyes in this area here, starting from here across to the right, we are now looking at, I'll just expand this out a little bit more. This here now is all the trading action from that particular day, the 31st of August. So let's now take a look at this in a bit more depth. It started out, as we know, at 4.8 cents in the day. That was the opening day, the opening trade. went up as high as 6.9 cents, then trailed out the rest of the day and then closed out at the end of the day, well, after the auction, CPSA auction, closed out at 5.8 cents. So that is precisely all the day's trade on a 3-minute chart. So keeping in mind the 6.2 cent area that I was talking about before, I'll highlight the 6.2 cent area here. That's 6.2 cents. And the high, which is that total peak, being 6.9. Have a look above the 6.2 cent area and so between the 6.2 cent area that's highlighted there now and the 6.9 cent area. There's not much trade that's going on between those two areas. We'll take a look at the amount of volume that's traded in between that in a moment. But this is the area that I really, really want to highlight in terms of the day's trading that's been going on that day, 31st of August, 100 million shares traded. The point I'm really trying to make is the majority of the shares that were traded in the day were below 6.2 cents. So this is firmly highlighting the mere fact that we really, really do have solid resistance at 6.2 cents as well as 6.9. So what I'm hypothesizing is the mere fact that, and I'll go back to this in the main chart in a moment as well, a lot of people were basically getting in around about the 6.2 cents previously, and what they've probably been thinking is, as soon as it got above 6.2 cents, oh my gosh, I better try and get out as quickly as I possibly can to try and make sure I break even or make a small loss. And a majority of the action now is occurring beneath the 6.2 cent area. So we've got a large amount of resistance going on at the 6.2 cent area, as well as 6.9. And chances are, if it gets above the 6.2 cent area at this point, more than likely, a large number of people will most likely bump this share price downwards. Most likely at this point. There's not much conviction right now from the bulls pushing this share price up. Should this turn, should this change, then you'll see upwards momentum in Dreadnought Resources. Until this occurs, though, at this point, there's not much momentum going to the upward direction. Now, if we highlight each of these cells here, in terms of each of these candles, we'll see the amount of volume that was traded in terms of, when we think about it, there's only 5 candles that were trading above 6.2 cents throughout that entire day. Let's look at the volumes. 6.9 million, 7.5 million, 9.9 million, and parts of 3 million and 4 million. That's it. Out of 100 million shares traded in the entire day, that's all. Okay, so let's estimate 7.5, that's about 14.5. Another 10, that's 24, and parts of another 7. So probably around about 30 odd million out of 100 million were trading above or in between that level of 6.2 and 6.9. So less than a third of the day's trade was between this level. Now let's go back. I'll just get out of this here. We'll go back to the day's trade, that's a little bit too wide. There we go. Go back into this here. And what I was saying before is there was a bit of trade going on between 6.9 and 6.2, around about here. But what's most likely happened because of this wick, okay, we had probably around about 30 million shares traded in between this level here. Most likely that could be some of these people trying to essentially sell off their shares and potentially break even, realizing, oh my gosh, this is a major resistance area here. I've got to try and break even or make a small loss, especially these guys. And how many shares were traded at this point here? 21 million. So we've probably equating around about to that 30 million shares of trade that we're talking about on that particular day. So that's most likely the scenario that's going on overall here. But what we need to see before we can probably see this actually going in the upward direction and potentially breaking out to the upside in terms of dreadnought would be some conviction from the bulls. So that's the overall hypothesis that I'm basically surmising in relation to dreadnought, is you need to see more conviction above the 6.2 level before you even get towards the 6.9 level. You need to see more conviction, you need to see more momentum, you need to see some more volume pushing in there, pushing it through to get it upwards towards that, and then the same above the 6.9 level to actually push this above. Because you actually also have to see enough momentum to push you through all of this resistance area here to get things going. That's essentially what you basically have to see. Now, there are some positives in relation to dreadnought here as well too. You are trading above the 10 and 30-day moving averages. That's a good sign. You do have bullish momentum going on here. That is a good sign as well too. But is it enough to keep it going? That is the question. Has it tired itself out? It's got a lot of work to be able to actually get above and get things moving. Is there enough to basically push it through? That's in terms of bullish versus bearish case. That is in terms of what's going on with the DMI scope. Okay, you do have the bullish aspect there going on, but that's also been pushed up because of the fact you've got this big gap up, right? So that's the whole circumstance there. And the same with the RSI. The relative strength is higher because of this gap up. Absolutely. Can it maintain itself, or is it going to fall through? They're the kind of things we've got to look at. So keep an eye on these indicators here. They're very, very important overall, right? So they're the ways of being able to look at these things. Should this actually fall through that signal, that's the yellow sign. The yellow sign is the signal. Should that actually fall through the signal and it starts losing its relative strength, then this would actually not bode well for the stock. So that's where the usefulness and the utility of the RSI comes into play. And the same in terms of the DMI as well too. DMI starts falling through and all of a sudden you start seeing a rise in the RSI with the red, then that can also indicate that things are not going to go too well here too. And obviously, of course, also taking a look at support and resistance levels here as well, because you also have this area here in terms of the 5.6 level acting as a support level as well. That's actually pretty well established. You've got it established from there as well too. So you've got a lot of things in play here in terms of dreadnought, but whether or not it's actually going to be able to actually hold itself and be able to maintain itself whilst all of these things are all in play, and waiting for that conviction from the bulls to actually come into play, will be very, very interesting space overall. But it needs volume, and it needs the volume to push it through, but you need also that momentum to come into play as it pushes itself through that 6.2 level, and then to get it past that 6.9 level. Very, very interesting. It's very speculative. Very, very speculative. Now, it's got one catalyst here. I'm not too sure in terms of, I haven't looked through in terms of the fundamentals on this, and I'm obviously not a financial advisor, so take a look at that disclaimer right at the beginning of the presentation as well. But take a look at all of these factors into play. But this is what the charts are basically saying. And it was very, very interesting in terms of all of the action that was going on this particular day on the 31st of August. I think it's really, really telling story. What are the current shareholders really saying? Because they've been very, very patient, waiting whilst this was falling, and they're all saying, oh, come on, what's happening with this drilling? Is it actually going to come up and actually give us some good news? Sure enough, the good news came about. But as soon as the share price got up about here, the people who had actually bought up here said, oh, thank you very much, I'm taking my money, I'm getting back out of here. Not really what you want your shareholders to do if they're holding long term. Interesting, okay? I don't want to say pump and dump, but is that exactly what the situation is going to happen? That could be the circumstance. So have a look in terms of your risk portfolio aspects here. That would be what I would highly recommend. I'll also put some links in here as well too. There are some resources that you may find useful as well. There are some other videos that I've actually prepared in the past too. So I'll put them up in the cards as well and in the comments down below so you can take a look at those. Some of the previous YouTube videos I have made about this include things like support and resistance, which was an episode that I made a while ago back on the 30th of November 2020. It was episode 1/2. Also another support and resistance video that I made in the past as well, back on the 6th of December 2020. That was episode 1/3. It was about everyone's favorite zip, actually, back then. And there's also a risk management episode that I made in the past as well, back on the 17th of December 2022. So a bit more recent, but that also has a template as well where you can calculate your risk as well. So hopefully that can help you too in terms of being able to calculate position size according to how much you would like to actually put in terms of risk on as well too. So that might be worthwhile there too. And then you can actually get that risk template as well too from my own personal website as well at ivorywolf.org. So I hope that all helps out. All the best with this. And I wish all the people who actually do own Dreadnought Resources all the best as well too in relation to their shareholding too. So we'll see how things do go. There may be some drill results on the way that may actually be a further catalyst to help drive the share price upwards overall too. So all the best with all of this. Should you have any comments in relation to this, feel free to post them down below, or alternatively as well, feel free to join us over at the ASX Traders United Facebook page as well. Feel free to join in the discussion there. I know there are some members there who do have an interest in this particular stock over there as well too, and have been discussing that on the boards. So I'll leave it there for now. Have a fantastic trading day that's coming up very, very shortly, and enjoy the rest of the trading day and the trading week. And I'll get on to the analysis for the week as well, and get back onto the regular videos for the week as well too. I'll catch up with you soon.